Hi everyone. I hope 2022 is a great year for all of you. Well, the weather really is pretty strange, but that's nothing new, right? For example, last week it was freezing. It was minus 30 Celsius and then minus 35 Celsius. It was frigid out there. And then the next day it went up all the way to only minus 5. That was strange for sure, but we all experience, days and weeks like that in the winter. Especially for those of us who live in the northern US or in Canada, it can be very cold. And this made me think actually, well, this is the perfect time to share one way that you could use your smart home in this kind of situation. So, for those of us who do live in cold climates during the winter, we all do that same thing in the morning. We unplug our car and we're able to start it. If we've forgotten to plug it in and we try to go and crank the engine, it won't turn on, and we'll have to call CAA to come and give us a boost. We all know this, right? You plug in your car just to run the block heater, and that keeps the engine and your battery warm. And this doesn't apply to electric cars, just gasoline cars. When we have it plugged in, there isn't power going to it, the whole time while it's plugged in, only for a few hours. So most of us have one of these. It's a timer with a plug in the bottom of it. So you set it to turn on at about 2 or 3 in the morning, and then it turns off later in the morning. Because you only really need the power to be going to the block heater for a couple hours for it to do its job. So whenever you get home from work, you just plug in your car, and it won't have any power actually going to the block heater until the middle of the night whenever you set it to turn on. And then the power will turn off to that plug later in the morning when you go to work. But maybe if it's a warmer day, like minus 5 or so, you wouldn't have to have power going to your block heater. That would just be wasting power. So I thought, why not use a smart plug instead? You'd be able to set up like your same schedule, but it could also check the weather for you. That means that maybe if it's programmed to turn on early in the morning, it would first check the weather before it does so. So maybe if it's something like minus 5, not too cold, it wouldn't turn the power on to your block heater. And then you're not spending all that extra money on electricity, and that's pretty smart, right? That means it does it for you. You wouldn't have to manually check the weather yourself and determine whether or not you have to turn on your block heater. It does all the work for you so that it's a completely hands-off process, and that's pretty cool, right? The thing about a smart plug too is that you also are able to go off of your typical schedule. So for example, say you had the day off of work and you had your car plugged in all day, but the schedule made the outlet turn off at 8 in the morning. And then maybe in the evening at 8 o'clock or so, you want to go to a friend's house to watch the game or something like that. But your car's been sitting there cold for 12 hours, and you go to crank the engine and it doesn't turn on. You would have had to have turned on that outlet manually. With a smart plug, you wouldn't have to do anything like that. You could just use your phone and the app on your phone to connect to the smart plug and turn that plug on. And then it would have power all day, and you'd be able to start your car when you go out in the evening. When you get back, you'd plug your car in as per usual, and then in the morning, at 8 in the morning, that power would turn off and the smart plug would go back to its programmed schedule. You wouldn't have to finish with doing it all manually and physically. So you are able to go off of your typical schedule if need be. And that would be a pretty good advantage. One thing that you do have to keep in mind, though, if you're thinking of using a smart plug for your car, is that it has to be weatherproof so that rain and snow don't damage it. This one here isn't weatherproof, so I wouldn't be able to use this outside. If you are going to be plugging your car in outside with a smart plug, it has to be weatherproof. You wouldn't have to worry about this if you're just plugging it in inside your garage. So plugging in your car with a smart plug for the timer and checking the weather, that's pretty smart, and it can save you a lot of money. All right, be smart.